I think we're going to give people another minute to join us, and then we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and get kicked off this morning. My name is Brian, and I'm going to be one of your instructors for Mod 2. It looks like we've got Tim here as well. Tim, do you want to say hi?
Yes, hello. Excited to meet y'all and yeah, just jump into it. Mod 2 is a lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff you get to learn. So yeah, pumped for y'all and congrats on making it here. And yeah, ready to get to work when y'all are.
And then we are also going to have Alex on our team. She is busy at the moment, so she's not with us on this call, but she is going to be our third instructor for the mod. And so for this morning, we're just going to go over the intermission work and kind of like what to expect for the next 2 weeks while we're not together. And then when we start after Thanksgiving, that Monday after Thanksgiving, then we'll do kind of like a longer intro, try to get to know each other a little bit more. But for today, we're just gonna look at this intermission work. Yeah, so this is our Mod 2 homepage. Yeah, right off the bat, I will say that we have some changes in place. And so, for instance, if you go to the projects page, you'll see there's like a separate section for the pair project for 2010. So that is just to say, like, some of this stuff on this page is going to be a little, it might be a little bit stale. And in fact, this project one right here is definitely going to change. So there are certainly resources that you can look at and you can kind of like get to know the Mod 2 homepage. I would recommend not diving too deep into it because there might be a couple things that might shift around. So just a heads up on that, and that you know if you do see anything change, why that's going to change. And we can certainly talk more about that during the mod next inning. For the intermission work specifically, there's a link here under curriculum. So it's the second one for intermission work. And this is going to link to all of your intermission work. So our high level learning goals for this intermission work are to understand the basics of HTML and CSS and create a static web page using CSS and HTML. So these first three learning goals are going to cover what I might call your layout in your application. So we're going to build web applications. Up until this point, you've just been building, you've been building applications in Ruby. They've run in your terminal. Now we're going to take some of those ideas and we're going to build applications that we can view on the web. So I could actually, you're going to build an application where I could type in the URL to your actual project. And we're going to host these on Heroku. And you would actually be able to go see this application that you built. So a big part of building these online applications is just the user interface. How does the user interact with your web page? That's what HTML and CSS are all about. And if you have any friends in the front-end program, this is something that they will probably be able to help you out with. Our next two learning goals are going to deal with databases. So we're going to understand what a relational database is, and we're going to interact with the relational database by writing SQL. So the database is unlike the HTML and the CSS and the layout of our applications. The database is going to be super important to us. As backend developers, one of our main jobs is to interact with the database. So storing data in the database, updating data in the database, deleting data in the database. Our work in the database is very, very important, and that's going to begin right now. So first of all, just what is a database? And then how do you interact with the database? We're going to write some SQL queries. And then the third group here, explore the basics of web development, understand and implement CRUD functionality, understand the MVC design pattern, and begin learning the conventions of the Rails app. This is the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be doing in Mod 2. We're going to be building Rails apps. And so this is going to be a tutorial that is going to walk you through the basics of what you need to know to build a basic Rails app. So this is all the stuff you're going to be getting familiar with in Mod 2. We're not going to talk too much about HTML and CSS. I think we'll have one exploration for you to do during the mod, but these last two groups here of databases and Rails apps are really going to hit on that that key content in Mod 2. For deliverables, you're going to be creating a gist, and I think you all should be pretty familiar with this from having done this for PD. This is just going to link to create a new gist, and there is a template here for you. I'll click on this. That just like your PD work, this is essentially everything that you need to do over. These are all the questions that you need to answer to complete your intermission work. So as you work, I would recommend before you even start working on this, go ahead and copy and paste this markdown into a new gist. And if you click on this raw button up here, this will give you the actual markdown. So you can copy and paste this and put it in your gist, and it'll keep all the formatting for you. And so if you do that, as you go through the intermission work, this is very much in order. So you can just answer these questions as you work through this work and kind of like keep you on track and on pace all the way through the Rails tutorial. So that's what you're going to be doing in terms of like what you're going to be learning and what you're going to submit for this intermission work. I want to pause here. Does anyone have any questions? And if so, go ahead and open up the participants button in your Zoom panel and click on the raise hand button. James.
Hi, yeah, I'm just curious, how in depth do you want answers to some of these questions? Like, what is HTML? You can like write like a full page, couple pages, or just you want one or two sentences to kind of like get an understanding of where we're at?
I think most of these are 1 to 2 sentences, not really like essay level here. We're mostly, the goal here is that we want you to critically think about the things that you are learning. So rather than just go through the intermission work, rather than just read everything, we're adding in a couple questions here to make sure that you're engaged with it. Yeah. And I think that that applies to all of these questions. You don't need to write more than 1 to 3 sentences, I would say. Adam.
Yeah, how's it going? I saw on the Intro to B2 invite, there was Brian, Alex, and Tim. I'm assuming those will be our 3 instructors. This would be great to get like a quick intro, if that's cool, some point in this hour, like who y'all are and what your background is.
Oh, sorry. One thing that we didn't. Oh, this is an hour. Yeah. So on my calendar, I only have this scheduled for 30 minutes. So Adam, this is what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna cover the intermission work for now, and we can give you a brief like intro on our backgrounds. We'll do like a longer intro on the Monday morning when the inning starts. But
cool.
We can definitely do that at the end for sure. And we'll let Alex. I won't speak for Alex. I'll let her go on her own time. Yeah. Any other questions as of right now, Michael?
Yeah, hey. So I repeated from last mod. I've been talking to classmates from 2008. And the common message that we got, or they said about the intermission work was that they wish they'd spent longer on it. So do you have like a time frame of what you'd recommend to spend over the next 2 weeks? Because I know that rest is always pretty underrated. So you just want to get a bit of color around that.
Yeah, I will go probably what the students that you talked to were referring to is that in these assignments there are recommendations for like how long you should spend on them, and those are more of like a a maximum. So we really wanted to make sure that everyone could get this intermission work done within, it's been a while since we made this. I think we set it at 15 to 20 hours. We wanted to say, if you wanted to spend 20 hours, so kind of like a half full work week, not a full turning work week, but like if a full work week is 40 hours, we said like, oh, if we have about 20 hours, that'll be good. So to give you all some free time. But those are more like minimum, or those are required minimums, I would say. If you wanted to spend more time, we can talk about that as well.
Cool,
So I think that's a good segue. Let's go ahead and talk about the assignments in a little bit more detail. The last thing I forgot to mention here is that this intermission work, which is your GIST deliverable, is going to be due on 5 p.m. before the module begins. So 5 p.m. the Saturday before the module begins. So that means the whole 2 weeks from this coming Saturday. So you'll have all of next week for intermission week and Thanksgiving week if you want to keep working on it. Yes. And I do realize that this form, I don't think anyone is ready to submit this right now, but this form is going to need to be updated as well. Just in case you click on it right now, this will get updated as well. For the actual assignments, the first one here is installing Ruby and Rails. So you all probably already have Ruby installed, and I think this Ruby installation should be what you've been working with. Do you know, have you all been working in 2.5.3? Cool. So this should be pretty, this will probably, you could probably skip over this. Make sure that you use Ruby-V just to confirm that you are on 2.5.3. If you get something else, follow these instructions here. So this should be pretty straightforward. And then Rails, Rails, it's very important that you're on the correct version of Rails. It doesn't, these last two numbers aren't as important, but making sure that you're on some version of Rails 5.2 is very important for our work in Mod 2. So if you have installed Rails another time, maybe you're curious, you just said, oh, I've heard about Rails. What if I do gem install Rails? This will install Rails 6, and our curriculum does not work with Rails 6. So if you have a different Rails version for whatever reason, you will need to uninstall it. And there is a uninstall at the very bottom here. There are instructions for uninstalling. And they're pretty short. But that is all by way of saying very important that you have the correct versions, just to make our environments a little bit more similar between all of us. It just makes debugging a little easier. So those are the Rails versions. And then the next thing is the Module 2 tools. So this first one here is downloading Postgres. So PostgreSQL is the specific database we're going to be working with in Mod 2. Yeah, I think these instructions are pretty straightforward. Then we're going to be using Postico. You might, I would recommend that you at least try to open up Postico and see what it can do for you. However, I know some people have had issues when they first install Postico getting it set up if you're not familiar with databases. So this might be something that you might have to get some help to install, and that's totally fine. We are going to take a look at this on our second day of classes on Tuesday. So if you're having issues with Postico, no need to worry. We will get that up and running very early on in the module. And then the last thing here is Google Chrome. I know some of you like to use different web browsers. Safari is the default one that comes with your Mac. But Google Chrome does have some tools that we are going to make use of in Mod 2. So it is important that you have Chrome installed. So if you don't, you can install Chrome at this link. Yeah. So the next section here is styling. And this is broken into 3 sections. So we've got intro to HTML, intro to CSS, and then we've got a static challenge here. So the first one, intro to HTML. these are just the checks for understanding that are in that gist as well. So it's just kind of reminding you, hey, remember, you got to answer these questions. This tutorial here is where we're really starting to dive into some new content. So I'll show you what this looks like. So this is the W3schools Tutorials. And this will kind of explain how this will work. But I do want to show you these try it yourself editors. This is one reason why I really like this style tutorial, is because it has very short lessons, and then it actually gives you the ability to play around with it. So for instance, I see like I have this H1 thing here, and we've got these angle brackets. But what if we change this? Rather than this is a heading, what if I said, my name is Brian? And then I can click run and see how that changes my visual output here on the right. So this series of tutorials is going to cover a lot of these things on the left here. So for example, when you're learning about HTML, let's go to HTML paragraphs. It'll give you a short description. So paragraph always starts in a new line. It's usually a block of text. The HTML element defines a new paragraph. It always starts in a new line. So you'll get these very short kind of like tutorials, and then there's some exercises. Yeah, so I'd highly recommend that you like try and play around with in addition to answering the questions, playing around with some of these try it yourself editors and just getting your hands on a little bit more. And then there is also a section down here for know that these exist. And here's our first spend no more than 30 minutes reading through these sections. So this is a series of things where we do actually just want you to kind of skim through, breeze through, and get familiar with the vocabulary, but you don't need to be masters of this content. The CSS section is going to be very similar. So intro to HTML, intro to CSS. Very similar. It's going to give you the 4 checks for understanding, and then it's going to give you a W3schools tutorial. So it says work from CSS introduction to CSS fonts. So on the left here, working through these sections up to CSS fonts. And same thing here, we have the ability to do try it yourself and see like, what if I changed it from, rather than this font, what if I just like deleted this string? How would that affect my output? I have no idea. Looks like it didn't have any effect. Does anyone have any questions about those tutorials that we are going to have you work through? All right, let's talk about the static challenge. So after you learn a little bit about HTML and CSS, now you're going to be able to put it to the test with this static challenge. So what is a static challenge? So a static challenge, we're going to practice HTML and CSS. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to look at an image of a web page and recreate that image using HTML and CSS. So the time box on this says spend no more than 2 hours doing this. This is one that I would recommend that you try to time box. Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll say more in just a second. So let's take a look at what the actual static challenge looks like. So in the README here, you've got some instructions. So this repository includes an index.html file, and it links to 2 CSS files. Reset.css, you don't need to touch this one. This file, if we look at it, style sheets reset.css, you don't need to touch anything with this file. This is essentially just resetting a lot of your browser defaults. There is another file here, main.css. This is an empty file. This is where you should be putting your CSS code. And then index.html is the file where you should be putting your HTML code. So you should be able to do this static challenge by only adding into those 2 files, the main.css and index.html. Okay, so here's where we get into the actual instructions. So the expectation is for you to choose one of the images in the completed directory, and there's links to them here, and do your best to mimic that file. So what that might look like is if I click on this number 1 here, it's going to give me this image, and I'm going to try to recreate this using HTML and CSS. So I actually want to go through this a little bit just so you all know what this will look like. Yeah, this will work. I have to reshare though. Okay, so if I clone this repo, it's going to take a minute. I guess that's because of the images probably. Of course, I've cloned the repo. Let's cd into it. Cool. So if I open this up, oh, I don't think Adam is working for me right now. I have to do this manually. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Okay, now I've got it open in Adam. So if I open up my index HTML file here, so I can look at my image. Let's go back to that image that I'm trying to copy. And I can, maybe the first place I want to start is at the top. And oh, I see that this has a big header called 5280 landmarks. So let's, in my body here, I'm going to make an H1 tag, and I'm going to type that in 5280 landmarks. Okay, so I've added some HTML code. I do understand you might not be familiar with this at this point. That's totally fine. The way that I can actually view this web page, or the way that I would do it, is I would, from the command line, use a command called open. And what open does is it takes a file and it will open it, and it will choose a file. It will choose a program on your computer to open it with. So if I open this HTML file, if I open index.html, what my computer will do is, because it's an HTML file, it will choose my web browser to open it in. And so you can see the URL in my web browser here is file users Brian Turing to module my static challenge index.html. And I can see there's my header with 5280 landmarks in there. So that's kind of what this process will look like. And I guess if I'm going to go one step further, I see that the background of this header is red. So then maybe I try to add some CSS. So I'll go to my style sheets, main.css, and let's see if I can do this off the top of my head. Background color red. So I'll go back over to my my file here, my tab in my web browser, and if I refresh, I'll see now that my my text is now red. And so now I'd have to continue to do some CSS to make it bigger, to make it look, to change the text color, to try and get it to look more like this. So that is the process. So for this one, I said the time box is more important. It says 2 hours. You don't have to stick to that time box strictly. Maybe it's 3 hours, maybe it's 4 hours. But the point here is to set a reasonable time box for you, because this can always be better. You can always get closer to making your image look exactly like this image, but at a certain point you hit a point of diminishing returns where spending more time styling doesn't actually help you learn anymore. It's just kind of tedious. So that's why knowing when this is good enough is very important. So we do not expect that the border of this image lines up exactly where it is, that if these two borders lined up, or if this wasn't underlined or something like, we're not trying to get that detailed. We're trying to get close enough to this. All right. What questions do you all have about the this styling portion of the intermission work? Tim, do you have anything to add?
Do you think it would be helpful to like just show them the dev tools or not?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I mentioned earlier, Google Chrome has some nice tools that are very helpful for us. One of those is, or the main one is the developer tools. So if you are looking at your web page, if you double click on a Mac, you'll get this. You'll get these options, and if you click inspect, this will open up this whole panel of developer tools, and you can see on this this elements tab right here, it gives you an interactive. It gives you an interactive. What am I looking for here? It gives you your HTML in this interactive form. So all this HTML that I wrote, so you can see this top level HTML, and then underneath that I have head, and underneath that I have meta. That's what I wrote in my, or that's what I have in my index HTML file. I have HTML, head, meta, blah, blah, blah. So this allows you to look at your HTML. So this is very helpful if you think that you did something correctly. You can use this to double check, what does my browser recognize that as? Additionally, you can edit things in here. So you can, I could double click into this header and I could change it to like Brian's awesome header. And I can actually see that change on my web page there. So these are very helpful. Even if you don't fully know how to use them yet, I think at least opening them up and trying to like explore what they give you would be a good idea. Tim, do you have anything else that you'd recommend that they look at?
I think this was the only thing I wanted to show, and just like if you do the editing this way, then you don't have to like context switch as much from your text editor to like opening the file a bunch of times. So this would be my recommendation because I think it'll speed y'all up.
Right. So I could like click on edit as HTML and go in here and try to like add my paragraph. Is this kind of what you're saying, Tim? You can use this to develop it directly.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with like the styles that are over there on the right. You can also like edit those, which is helpful.
Yeah. So I can add this paragraph here, and then I can see it pop up down here. And then what Tim is saying is that I could then go over to this section over here. So I'm clicked on my header, and I can see some styles in here, and I can go up here, and I can add another one. So I can try it. Let's try to change the text color to white. And before I even hit enter, I see it change that text color. So yeah, Tim is right. This is a good way to speed up your development. And then once you figure this out, I can just literally copy and paste it and put it into my actual file over here. Cool. Let's move on to the other parts of the intermission work. Okay, our fourth thing here is intro to SQL. So this is where we're starting to learn about databases. The first thing here is a Jumpstart Lab tutorial. This should give you a good overview of SQL and just like high level, what is SQL and what are databases, and you'll answer some questions here. And then we've got a series of exercises here. The time box for this one says no more than 2 hours on a section. So that's for this basic section, no more than 2 hours, join section, no more than 2 hours, aggregates, no more than 2 hours, for a total of 6 hours. Now, because we have some extra time over double intermission week, this is something that I would say if you have more time, try to go through all of these. If you come into Mod 2 with a really good understanding of SQL, that will make a lot of the things that we cover in Mod 2 a lot easier to grasp. Now, with that said, we are going to continue to cover SQL in the mod, so it's not like you have to be a master of SQL coming into the mod, but it can only help the more familiar you get with SQL. I want to click on one of these just to show you what this looks like. and kind of what I mean by time box. So this up here is a schema which might not make sense out of context, but this is essentially like how is my database organized, and it gives me a expected results over here. So if I'm trying to find, and the question here is produce a list of facilities that charge a fee to members. So if I didn't have this answer here, I might start off by trying to say like select star from cd.facilities. Cool, I wrote that. Then I can run my query and it'll give me this X if it isn't right. And it'll show me here my results. And I can compare how is this different than this expected result over here. Well, it looks like I'm not only finding ones with a member cost greater than 0. So we'll say where cd.facilities dot member cost greater than 0. And then that would give me the green check when I've got it right. If I wasn't able to figure this out, so I'm trying for a while, I can't quite get it, this does give you hints. So use this hint button, and this will point me to the where clause. So maybe I can't figure out exactly what I need to do. This will tell me what I need to do, and then from there I can figure out how to do that. So how do I use my where clause? Oh, this also says I should maybe brush up on what the where clause is before I move forward. So make sure that you use these hint buttons. And then also, if you, this is only showing this because I got this answer right. If you really can't get something, you can click on show to see the answer, and it gives you some nice explanations with how you would get to this answer. So these exercises are nice because they give you hints and answers so that you don't get too stuck on any one problem. You can always get some feedback even if you didn't get the right answer. And yeah, this whole section is a series of these exercises, and then make sure that you're also answering the checks for understanding as you go. And then the final thing is the Rails tutorial here. Oh, James, I see you have a question.
Yeah, just real quick. Do you have a good resource? Like if we're going to look up what the where clause does, like Ruby had the Ruby docs. Is there a good resource to look up like SQL stuff?
Yeah, I think that this tutorial is a good place to start. So this one that this is the first part of your SQL work. So this will go into like, what is SQL? What are databases? Hands-on experiments, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes over some of this. So inserting, displaying, scoping. Yeah, so here's where it would talk about the where statement a little bit. So I'd say this is the first part, the first thing to look at. And if you need more, there are plenty of good resources online. What happens if I just type in SQL where? Yeah, so it actually goes to the W3schools, which is the tutorials that we use for HTML and CSS. So this is probably where I would go, just because I like these styles of tutorials, and yeah, it gives you the ability to like actually click in and try it yourself. Tim, I'm curious, do you have does anything else come to mind as like a resource for researching SQL?
Not really. I guess like the docs, but yeah, I don't have anything great, to be honest.
Yeah, so I guess I'll show this for now, but I don't know how relevant it will be to you all. I think this is going to be on 12. So because we're using a Postgres SQL database, the Postgres SQL documentation is kind of like the source of truth, but this is like very dense, very technical documentation. And I would say for where most of you are at right now, probably going to be a little bit more than what you need. Yeah. Yeah, so if I read this description of the where clause, the where search condition is any value expression after the processing of the from clause is done. Each row in the derived virtual table is checked against the search condition. This is much more of a like technical definition versus the tutorial is going to say when you have a very small data set, it's possible just to print out blah blah blah. But as the data grows, let's look at how you can scope your queries using the where. The where limits the returned rows only to those matching a specified, only those with a specified attribute matching. So this to me is a much more like readable definition than the other version. Yeah, and then the last part here is our Rails tutorial. I don't need to go over this too much because this is a very, this is one that we wrote. This is all tutorial style, so this should be pretty easy to follow along with. Yeah, so I don't think I need to say too much more about this. And then this one does have some checks for understandings as well. And it does have a link to a completed repository at the bottom, just in case you get seriously hung up on anything. This tutorial is very important that you have this complete. So we are going to require that everyone successfully finishes this intermission work in order to start the mod. That task manager tutorial, that very last thing, our first classes are going to explicitly reference that tutorial, and we're going to continue to reference it for maybe the first week or two. So that is to say that you really need to make sure that you are up to date on the intermission work in order to hit the ground running in Mod 2. Yeah. The last thing that I want to talk about is our availability over intermission week. So Tim and Alex and I all joined the channels, but I'm going to just drop our, just so it's really clear, I'm going to drop our Slack handles into our cohort channel right now. Let me do that. There we go. So you have access to our Slack handles. So you can message us if you need to over the intermission week. I'm planning to be around for most of the first intermission week and not as much during Thanksgiving week. Tim, what do you have specific availabilities over the next 2 weeks?
It'll be similar. I'll be around a lot of this first week up until like Thursday, and then yeah, pretty much Thursday through Thanksgiving week. I probably won't be around very much.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we'll be around, but I do think that the most important thing that you all can do is to use each other as a resource. Do you all have a code help channel? I think that's become pretty common.
Yeah, I added you to it, Brian. I added you and Alex. They added me to it.
Awesome. So I would say that code help channel should be kind of like the first place for us to put things. I don't monitor it super closely, but I do jump in from time to time when I have something to add in. So that's probably the way to make things the most visible. You can message us instructors. Especially if there's anything that is not relevant to the whole class, like you need to let us know if you aren't going to be around for a day next mod or something like that, or you need to let us know about maybe some specific scheduling constraints. Please message us with any of that. If you have any specific questions about the code that might be more relevant to everybody, I would encourage you to put it in the code help channel. You can certainly DM us if you think it's more specific to you. If we think it's something that everyone might benefit, we might just ask you to ask it in the code help channel. And I think that just about covers everything. Does anyone have any other questions for us? Isabel, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, you are. I was just curious if there's going to be an assignment tracker, like a Google Docs spreadsheet assignment tracker for when we start them on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is something that we've done in previous mods. We don't have it for the intermission work specifically, that link is just going to be here at the bottom. And yes, I will need to update this. I'll do that momentarily. So yes, we will have one. It's not ready to go right now. Anything else? Just to give you all a quick intro, just so you know our backgrounds a little bit. So I am a graduate of the University of Virginia, so I did not go to Turing. I studied computer engineering at UVA. So it's a little bit different than computer science, which is maybe the degree that's most correlated with what you all are learning. So computer engineering, we do a little bit more hardware. So I have a little bit more of a hardware background than maybe like traditional web developer might have. So that's kind of my background. I worked for a government contractor in the DC area for about a year after I graduated, and then I moved to Colorado and started working for Turing shortly after that. And I've been with Turing for about 3 years now. So that's a little bit about me. Tim, you want to go next?
Yep. Yes, I went to University of Colorado at Denver. I have psychology degree from there. I lived in Vail for like a number of years, just like skiing and stuff. And then like went to Turing starting in like 2017. And then I got a job at a local company called Crown Peak. I worked for them for like 14 or 15 months. And then I got a job with a startup in Boulder called Via TRM, and did software for them for about 6 months before I joined Turing full time. I was working part-time for the Mod Zero program when it first kind of like came about, whenever that was. Feels like a while ago now. So yeah, I have been with Turing for about 2 years, 1 year full-time, 2 years part-time and full-time. Yeah, and it's great.
So we'll be looking forward to get to know you all a little bit more over the mod. We'll want to do a full round robin of some intros when we start the new inning. But for now, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up here. Definitely let us know if there are any questions about this intermission work. I would recommend that you at least try to do these first two within the next. I guess you all are pretty much done with your assignments for this mod. So I would recommend trying to do these either today or tomorrow. They should be pretty quick. And if there are any like major environment issues, it's best that we get those figured out ASAP so that you can move on to the other parts of the project or the intermission work. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.